Points and miles allows an average person like me to be able to enjoy amazing vacations. And in order to have success in points and miles, you have to know what banks and credit card issuers are offering so that you can make the best decision and develop your best plan. One credit card issuer that you'd never really hear that much about is Citibank. Well, today, that's all going to change. In this video, we're going to do a deep dive in how Citibank can help you as a points and miles traveler. We're going to look at application restrictions as well as welcome bonus restrictions. Also, we're going to take a look at the credit cards that are offered and see about if there's some certain groups that might be able to help you in your success. And when it comes to travel partners, we're going to take a look at that as well. We're going to take a look at ones that might be exclusive to Citi, and we're also going to look at ones where Citi is one of other issuers so that you know that you can combine your points with Citi with points from others. And be sure to stay to the end because I'm going to give you some tips that are going to be instrumental in your success with Citibank. According to the latest Nielsen report, Citibank is the third largest credit card issuer in the United States. In 2022, they had a total of over $563 billion worth of transactions that year. Now, in a bit of a twist though, for that much transactions, here in the United States market, they only have 14 credit cards, 12 personal and 2 business. And I think because of them only having 14 credit cards is why you don't hear a whole lot about them. But I think amongst those 14 credit cards that there are some credit cards that can help out a lot of different people in a lot of different situations. So let's take a look first at application restrictions for Citibank. When it comes to the number of credit cards, Citibank has no restriction on the number of credit cards a person can hold at one time. While there may not be a restriction on the number of credit cards that you can have, the reality though is that every credit card issuer has a limit of how much credit that they're going to extend to you, no matter the number of credit cards that you have. And that's something to keep in mind as you go through the process. Citibank does have a 1 in 8 restriction, which is basically one application every 8 days. And that is for both personal and business credit cards. And then they actually have a 2 in 65, which is 2 applications maximum in a 65-day period of time. And that's also, again, both for personal and business applications. And they have a restriction of 1 in 90, and that is only for business credit cards. So you can only submit 1 business application every 90 days. So what's the takeaway from these different application guidelines or restrictions? The takeaway from these restrictions is that you really have to have a plan up front of what you're going to want to do with points and miles and essentially know where Citi may slot in for that so that you are not restricted or impacted by these application restrictions. When it comes to welcome bonus restrictions, they essentially have a 48-month rule, basically saying that you can only receive 1 bonus for any particular credit card within a 48-month period. And that bonus restriction is very important for us. And that piece of information is going to help us as far as long-term planning if you have Citi credit cards so that you can be able to maximize and get that welcome bonus more than once in some cases. So now with that information in mind, why don't we take an overview of what credit cards that Citibank has and see if some of those may slot in for your plan. Taking an overview of these credit cards, we're able to see that there are some areas to keep in mind that are beneficial for us in points and miles. As we take an overview of these credit cards, we can really see where there may be some areas that could be beneficial to a lot of people. The first set of credit cards that I see that could be beneficial is if you're looking at potentially doing balance transfers. 2 of the personal credit cards are specifically geared towards balance transfers. And those 2 cards are the Citi Simplicity and the Citi Diamond Preferred. With an introductory rate of 0% for up to 21 months, these have some of the longest terms available in credit cards for balance transfers. The next category that we can see something in is if you are interested in American Airlines. When it comes to American, Citi has 3 personal credit cards and 1 business card. And Citibank is one of only 2 banks that end up issuing co-branded American Airlines credit cards. So if you're a person that flies American often and depending upon where you're at in your credit card journey, this might be a good place for you. Now I do have to provide an honorable mention that is not specific to points and miles, but still may be beneficial to you for your everyday spend. If you're a person that goes to Costco, Citi is the provider of the Costco credit card, both for personal and business. So now, as far as the last but definitely not least, Citi has 3 credit cards that have a very good tie together that can help us with points and miles. You have the Citi Double Cash, the the Citi Custom Cash, and then the Citi Premier. The Citi Double Cash and the Citi Custom Cash are two credit cards with 0% annual fee and are excellent starter credit cards that can provide a lot of bang for your buck with your everyday spend. The Citi Double Cash essentially acts as a catch-all 2% cash back on all of your purchases. And on the Citi Custom Cash, which is very unique for it, is that it offers 5% cash back on whatever category you spend the most in each and every month that is within their categories. Now, what can tie those two credit cards together is the Citi Premier credit card, which has a $95 annual fee. And so by having the Citi Premier card, you can take that cash back value that you get from the Citi Custom Cash and the Citi Double Cash and convert those into Citi Thank You points, which is the points that Citibank utilizes as flexible points. And when I'm talking about flexible points, what I mean is that each of these four major banks, American Express, Capital One, Chase, and Citibank, each have their own branded flexible points. And those points are able to be used for transfer partners, which where in points and miles, we truly maximize the value of these credit cards. So sometimes you may hear the Citi trifecta, meaning the three credit cards that tie together, and that is those three credit cards: Double Cash, Citi Custom Cash, and the Citi Premier. So we've looked at the application restrictions, the welcome bonus restrictions, and then we've also kind of done an overview of the credit cards so that you can determine how Citibank may be beneficial to you in your plan. Well, now let's take a look at the transfer partners. Anytime we look at transfer partners, what we really need to understand is the transfer partner exclusive to that credit card issuer, or is it one of many credit card issuers that utilize that transfer partner? By knowing that information, it helps you in your plan to determine how valuable those flexible points can be from that credit card issuer. So Citibank has 17 transfer partners, 14 airlines, and 3 hotels. Now, while none of these credit card issuers are exclusive to Citi, what we do find is that there are, especially on the airline side, some different airline transfer partners used by other transfer partners, and that really allows you to pull points from different areas, from American Express, from Chase or Capital One, and combine them with Citi and get them to that transfer partner so that you can really maximize the points that you might gain from multiple sources. Let me just touch on a few examples of some of the transfer partners that may be something that might fall into your plan. So let's start with Avianca LifeMiles. And if you've not heard of Avianca, trust me, you aren't the only person. I had not heard of them until I started doing points and miles. Avianca Airlines is actually based in the country of Colombia. Now you may say to yourself, what do I need to do with Avianca LifeMiles? I'm not trying to fly to Colombia. It's a good question, and I actually have a good answer for you as well. Avianca LifeMiles is the perfect example of a transfer partner where we are not utilizing the points of that airline to fly that airline. We're actually using the points of that airline, like Avianca LifeMiles, to be able to utilize to fly on another airline that are part of a alliance that airline is within. So bear with me. So in this case, Avianca LifeMiles has a relationship with Star Alliance. Star Alliance is the largest aviation alliance making up of 28 airlines from across the world. A few airlines that you may have heard of that are part of that alliance is Air Canada, Lufthansa, United, and of course, Avianca. One of the sweet spots with Avianca is being able to fly Lufthansa first class from the United States to Europe. So if you looked at flying Lufthansa first class from the United States to Europe, you could fly there for 87,000 points each way, which is an amazing redemption. In addition to the fact that the amount of points that you have to use with Avianca points, LifeMiles, is less than if you were flying on Lufthansa using Lufthansa's program, you actually are saving on the fuel surcharges that would apply if you were flying using Lufthansa's points, which could be $900 in fuel surcharges to be able to fly to Europe. And that is a savings that you get with using Avianca. Another redemption from Avianca could be flying transcontinental from New York to California in United Polaris, which is an outstanding business class of United, for only 25,000 points each way. Another program that has a great redemption is the Turkish Smiles and Miles program. That program is from Turkish Airlines, but once again, we're not worried about using Turkish Smiles and Miles to be able to fly on Turkish Airlines, although there are some great flights. But the sweet spot is being able to once again utilize those points towards partners within the Star Alliance. Now, a real nice redemption through Turkish Smiles and Miles is to be able to fly on Swiss Air in business class for 45,000 points each way from the United States. Now, you do still have fuel surcharges to pay, but even with those fuel surcharges, with that low amount of points to be able to fly to Switzerland in business class, it is still an outstanding sweet spot. And let me also point out a transfer partner that you may be surprised I'm going to mention. Choice Privileges. Here in the United States, Choice Hotels are really known as a possible budget option for hotels. But what it actually has is an outstanding sweet spot for some hotels in Europe and Japan, because the redemption rate is 1 to 2. So for every 1,000 thank you points, it is worth 2,000 Choice Hotel points. And there's some outstanding bargains and opportunities for their hotels in Europe and Japan. Now, those are just 3 of the great sweet spots that are through transfer partners through Citi. Now, I do want to end up throwing out a caveat, though, that with any great sweet spot, there's always a difficulty of either finding the space that will allow you to utilize those points, and then, of course, the timing and the fitting of it with your schedule. But that doesn't take away from them still being great sweet spots. You just have to determine if it's going to be your sweet spot. So you can see that there's some potential really good opportunities for you with Citi if it fits your plan. So let me provide you some tips in regards to Citibank as far as beginning to work with them. Tip number 1, Citi is pretty touchy about hard inquiries. And as we've talked about before, a hard inquiry occurs anytime that you are seeking new credit. So to address this, you really need to know when do you want to seek a potential Citi credit card. Ideally, I would say don't end up applying for credit cards within that 3 months prior to applying for a Citi credit card. That will help to improve your chances as you're applying for the credit card. The second tip is consider starting a relationship with Citi if you see cards that will be helpful for your plan. And so when I say start a relationship, I'm actually really just talking about maybe a potential checking account with Citi, which they do a lot of promotions for. If you find a situation or a promotion that Citi's having that might provide you a bonus with a opening of a bank account and it works for you, strongly consider it. And the third tip is Citi pulls from different credit bureaus depending upon the credit card that you're applying for. So you may not necessarily know what credit bureau that they may be pulling from, and that's okay, as long as you have an idea of what your credit score is generally. So as you can see, Citibank has a lot to offer to a lot of people, and it may potentially fit in your plan. And if you want to know about the 4 steps that I follow to try to be as successful as possible with points and miles, I'll be more than happy to show you in this video right here.